All right, give me 2 seconds, inshallah. I'm just getting everything set up. All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. رضي الله تعالى عنه وسادة التابعين وعلماء عاملين وآئمة أربعة المجتهدين ومقالديهم إلى يوم الدين وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. All right, so we're going to start our second segment, inshallah. And last week we spent a good portion of our time talking about the ilahiyat pertaining to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We talked about Allah ta'ala is existing without a beginning or ending. We also talked about there's nothing in creation that resembles Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no matter what, the case, the word that a human being may utilize, and it's also utilized towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, for instance, Allah's mention is Al-Hayyu, right? He's living. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also mentioned as Al-Basir, seeing, As-Sami', right? And all of these things that are mentioned, these are done without any of the human attributes and qualities that we share, right? So it's kufr, it's shirk to associate, an description to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Especially from human qualities, because our mind is naturally trained. When you look at television is nothing more than a figment of our imagination. That's all it is. It's just our imagination, right? I just took my children to go see Dogman, right? It's a movie cartoon about a cop who somehow lost his life. They couldn't save him, so they put the dog head on a cop, on a human body, right? So this is what the imagination will always go to. No matter what the situation is, the imagination by default will just automatically turn to the thought of creation. And this is why Dhunnun al-Misri, rahmatullahi alayh, he said, whatever comes to your mind, know that Allah Ta'ala is not that, right? So then this is why the Shaykh, he goes on, after mentioning that Allah Ta'ala is not resembling creation, he goes on to mention, he said he's not a physical body, he's not in a place, he's self-sufficient, he doesn't depend on anything else. He's one in his essence, the attributes and actions. Nothing in creation acts on its own. Fire doesn't burn, food doesn't satisfy, the knife doesn't cut, right? So all of this was mentioned after this particular point. Then he goes on and he begins to show you that we're limited in our power, right? Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where he says about Allah Ta'ala, he says everything happens by the permission of Allah. And are those things that would naturally we deal with: food, fire, knives, bullets, guns, things of those nature. Those things are natural, right? And you think automatically when a knife cuts you, you're gonna die, right? Or it stabs you, it punctures you, so on and so forth. A bullet hits you in the head, that's it, it's over. You know, if you eat, you're going to be satisfied. If you ever notice, satisfaction doesn't, if you don't believe that food doesn't satisfy except by the permission of Allah, look at people that weigh 600 pounds. Somewhere down the line, they didn't miss a meal. They ate until it reached, you know, reached that particular level. They ate and they continue to eat, you know, until they got to that point. So food doesn't satisfy except by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Very simple to comprehend, but we probably don't even reflect on that and just think about it. Everything in creation, you reflect on it, you know, you'll find that you'll find the, you know, the jalal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It didn't happen on its own. It didn't happen by accident. All of these things, you know, are controlled by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, so then the Shaykh, he goes on, he mentions, he says, power, everything. Allah ta'ala has power over everything. So know that your power is limited. Perfect example of that is, you know, I like sometimes I like the human body, some things I like about biology, physiology, anatomy. Human body, one simple thing. If a person has to go to the bathroom, you are under the illusion that you had some sort of control over it because you may have held it for a lengthy amount of time, right? But they have this thing, what they call a latchkey effect, right? When you got to go to the closer you get to the toilet, the more urgent it becomes. You ever experienced that before? Where you got to get ready to go to the bathroom, you know, and the closer you get, the idea of you using the bathroom, it becomes impossible for you to hold it, right? That is a weakness. That is a weakness. That's not a perfection, right? Some people are like, oh, I don't use the bathroom in public. I wait till I get home. And then when they got to go to the bathroom, they can't do anything to stop it. It just flows, right? Or just dumps, whatever the problem is, whatever your flavor, right? So all of these things happen, right? They happen and they happen the way it does. And it should reflect for the believer, for the mu'min. He knows that this is a deficiency within himself. And he knows that ultimate power is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, so anyway, he has power over everything and he does what he wants. No one is coercing Allah. Allah is not forced, right? Allah doesn't have to give you Jannah. You know, Allah is giving you Jannah because that's what he promised to you in the Quran. But it's not nothing that's forced to you, right? Where Allah is coerced, you know, made to obligated to forgive you of your sins, right? That's all up into the control. That's all up to the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, so he's all knowing. He's aware of everything, right? All knowing, has all knowledge. You don't have to go to a university. Us, we have to learn, right? Like even when you refer to the story in the Quran with the creation of Adam alayhi salam, right? And Allah Ta'ala mentions that he did what? He taught him all the names of the things, right? Same thing. Well, Allah Ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Rahman, you know, he's letting you know about his Jalal, his majesty, you know. He taught you the thing. He taught you the pen. He gave us knowledge, right? One of the greatest, and because the Quran mentions the pen in it, Allah Ta'ala mentions the pen in the Quran, then that's also an indication that educating, not just any education, but being educated about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most superior knowledge. Think about it. We learn secular knowledge, right? And we praise that person who has a PhD, a doctorate, and so on and so forth, right? We either love him or we hate him. We hate on him like, oh, you think you know everything. Or we praise him like, man, you're so knowledgeable, doctor. You're so knowledgeable. But when it comes to our Islam, we don't have that same respect, right? When Allah Ta'ala tells you in the Quran that he gave you the knowledge to learn of these particular things, right? Like the movement of the sun and the moon. A lot of us, because our introduction is we learn about these things. Our introduction is from our schooling, right? They teach you that in science, right? Biology. Oh, the sun, the earth is rotating and the sun is moving around it and so on and so forth. And they try to explain it and how it's systematic, but Allah Ta'ala been explained it in the Quran, right? Well, Allah Ta'ala tell you in the Quran, He created the daytime for your benefit. What happens during the daytime when the sun is out? Vegetation grows. Most of us think that our food, absolutely comes from the supermarket. No, you have to grow the food that you eat, right? And it's becoming like a big marketing scam now, where you got organic versus non-organic, GMO versus non-GMO, right? So you have that even as well. And most Americans, we're extremely sickly because we eat processed foods, right? Our children no longer eat vegetables. Our kids will probably be dying, and every time I look around me, one of my friends are dying, right? I had more friends as Muslim died than I did in Jahiliyyah. Most of our friends are dying. They're not dying from gunshots and things of that nature. They're dying from things of organ failure, right? The organs are just breaking down and just no longer working. But yet we still continue to, to move about throughout life as if we'll live forever. And the more we consume these processed foods and these non-halal, items and things of that nature, the more it deteriorates and breaks your body down, right? So we're after pleasure more than survival. You can't pay someone now to eat green vegetables. Think something as simple as that. People are like, oh man, I've been constipated. My stomach has been hurting. Oh man, when's the last time you ate some green vegetables? Because within the green vegetables, it contains certain minerals and vitamins that that help. Oh man, I don't eat that. I don't even like this, and I don't like that, and I don't like. We got a whole long list of what we don't like. But if you knew the medicinal benefits of it, right? Then you would prefer that over. But sometimes a lot of us don't, keep our bodies in check, so we don't even, frequent going to our doctors. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, Allah Ta'ala is all knowing of everything and He never dies. Allah Ta'ala hears without ears. He sees without eyes. He speaks without a tongue or sound. He's not obligated to do anything, and rewards are by His mercy and punishment is by His justice. So today, we're going to try to cover and finish up the last two sections. In the first section that we start off with in today's lesson is Fasl fil Nabawiyya, right? Fasl fil Nabawiyya, okay? And that section is the section pertaining to the prophets and messenger, or prophethood, right? وَجَمِعَ رُسُولِهِ صَادِقُونَ آمن لا يعصون الله بالغوا ما أمرهم لا يكتمون ويجوز في حقهم المرض ونحوه مما لا نقص فيه لتعظيم أجرهم. Now, so in this section, the Shaykh, he goes on and he says about the prophets and messengers. He said all of the messengers are truthful and trustworthy, right? Because what is the opposite of truthfulness and trustworthiness? Being a liar and being treacherous, right? And if Allah Ta'ala allows a liar or a person that's treacherous to carry the message, right, then this taints the message, because a liar is always going to be a liar and a treacherous person is always going to be treacherous. They may have moments of truth, right? Like a person tells a lie. There's no lie that exists that doesn't have a little bit of truth in it, right? A lie contains a little bit of truth, but the bottom line, the overall outcome is a lie. It's still a lie. And so a person that's a liar, they may tell the truth, they may do particular actions, but overall they're still a liar, right? Trustworthiness, they were trustworthy. They didn't disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The prophets were protected from sin and error, right? They conveyed what they were commanded to do and did not conceal it, right? They conveyed the message. There's no secret chapters. This is one of the things where you'll find that those who follow MSTA, Moorish Science Temple of America, where they're charged with disbelief, is that they say that Drew Ali brought additional addendums to the Quran, extra chapters. All the chapters weren't revealed in the Quran. Anyone who says this, they're a kafir, right? they're not Muslim. It doesn't matter if they face the same Qibla, grow the beard, say the salams better than you, speak Arabic better than you, reading the Quran better than you. If they say and they believe in their heart that there is missing chapters of the Quran, they have committed an action of disbelief, right? So anyway, so prophets and messengers, I think there's a fragment amongst the Shia who also believe that the Quran wasn't completely revealed, and Sayyidina Ali, Karamallahu wajh, was sent with extra portions of it. It's all this is disbelief. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not leave earth. He did not take his last breath until the last of revelation. The revealing of the Quran was connected with the life of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Once he passed away, like I think it was, I believe it was Maktoum, where she said, she was weeping because the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and this is something that we should even pick up in our everyday practice. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to visit people regularly just to check on their well-being, And if it was a woman, sometimes he would, and sometimes he would bring his sahabas with him, like he used to when Sayyidina Khadija died, radiallahu ta'ala anha, he would go and visit her friends, out of respect and the love that he had for her. And so, I think it was Umar and Abu Bakr, they went to go visit Maktoum, and she was still weeping. And they said, well, what makes you cry? She says, I don't cry because of the death of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. She said, I'm weeping because our connection with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is now ceased. We're just left with the kitab, right? We no longer, if we had a question, they would ask the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and eventually Allah will reveal an ayat about it. But now we no longer have that, right? Which plays a part, which we're going to get into fiqh and things of that nature. But this plays a part where you have to have ulama amilin, not just any type of ulama, not any type of scholar, right? Because technically Shaitan could be considered a scholar because he was around for all the revelations, right? But ulama amilina, the right acting scholars, right? That's concerned about upholding the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and strengthening it, and this is why we created this platform of Tajdid Sunnah Institute to appeal to the people that no one really wants to deal with, which is some of our young inner city Muslims, former or currently active, gangbangers, whatever, because they have a right to knowledge as well. As a matter of fact, if there's no access to knowledge to these particular people, then therefore what you will have is you'll have this land of or area of people that just do dhulm, that just do all wrongdoing. And this is what the ghettos represent: poverty and infidelities and crime, right? And so what happens is the Muslims, what we're guilty of, especially American Muslims, right? We shouldn't be turning up on those that are people, but many of us, we get good jobs and then we want to consider ourselves part of the bourgeois, we don't want to be, dealing with that, we're the talented 10 and, things of that nature, but oftentimes we're ignoring the people, half of the young people that's out in the streets, one, they're illiterate, they're partially literate. And then you give them drugs and intoxicants on top of their everyday problems of poverty, abuse, and all types of trauma. What you have is a conundrum, for oppression. And then they don't even see that the system is stacked against them, right? They forget that a system is stacked against them because their recitation is music. And the music numbs the heart. It's like Novocaine, you hit a person with Novocaine, they don't feel the full impact of the punch. So most of our brothers and sisters, they don't feel the real impact of what they're doing, to themselves and in that society until death reaches them or till the prison cell doors start closing. That's when you start realizing the system is against us. But meanwhile, on the other side, and to the people who's looking at the television and reading these things, they're not worried about your upbringing, whether or not, you had pots and pans when you grew up, or whether y'all had heat in the house or you used the oven in order to heat the house. Sometimes that stuff is motivated by ingratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? that when you have that ingratitude to Allah rather than being grateful, what happens when you have ingratitude, right? Because what's the word for ingratitude? Kufr. Right? The ingratitude, you have that ingratitude where you're always denying what little bit you have. You're not grateful for it. You're always crying about what you don't have. And majority of people, that's why. And I believe that that's also another contribution to the drastic failure of the impoverished people, because they're always crying about what they don't have, right? The women is constantly crying about it versus making dua and motivating, and the man just loses all his confidence and just sits still like, like a old cut off tree, with nothing coming from, nothing. He's not producing anything. But anyway, I digress. So the Shaykh also said it is permissible for them to experience illness and similar things that do not diminish their status, because people will, they used to use this as a method or an antic, to try to tell the people like, well, if he's a prophet, then why does he get sick? He shouldn't be getting sick if he was sent as a messenger, to Allah. Oh, but sometimes you learn from that. You learn how to deal with hardship. One of the things that I love about the Prophet ﷺ and scholars who mimic that style, it was something that, I was reminding my wife this week, even on your deathbed, you still have an obligation to command people to do good and teach people to do, the right thing. The Prophet ﷺ wouldn't leave earth until he completed the message. We believe when we get sick, that's it. Ain't nothing else left. I gotta go. Lord, take me now. No, until that last breath, right? And even then, as a Muslim, you'll find the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in our traditional hadith is to encourage the person to say La ilaha illallah, right? On their deathbed. It don't matter how much pain and agony. If you breathing and your lung may be collapsing, you should be La ilaha illallah. You should be trying to utter those words. Let those last words, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told you, which brings us into our segue to our next section, is that the person who dies with a mustard seed of Iman in his heart will be admitted to paradise, and the persons whose last words off their tongue is La ilaha illallah will enter Jannah, right? So we know that for certain. We believe it. The Prophet ﷺ said it, so we believe it. So this is something that we have to be, encouraged and motivated to do. So it's permissible for them to have illnesses and sicknesses, and it doesn't diminish their status in order to enhance their reward, right? So now we'll get to the next section. And this is one of the sections that's most important, and it's not really emphasized as much as it should be. It's usually just kind of like an afterthought. After learning about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his jalal, his majesty, right? After learning about that, after learning about the prophets and messengers, it all boils down to this last part, because we would not have this information without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala nor the prophets and messengers, right? And it's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in Surah Al-Baqarah, after Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابَ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, right? And they're the believers. They're the ones who believe in the unseen. And this is a matter that's all connected. And when you think about it. Think about the reward. Why is the reward of paradise so great? The reward of paradise is so great because you were motivated to obtain it. You believed without actually having the physical eye to see it. Think about it. The Prophet ﷺ said that, we're a great portion of the ummah because we believed in the Prophet ﷺ and we didn't physically see him with our eyes, right? We didn't physically see him. We knew of his existence, right? We know of his existence. We know about his description, right? Many Muslims today don't even know, the description of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not really concerned with his character and things of that nature. We have to be concerned with that. The more you do that, the more you keep his sunnah alive. And the more you keep the sunnah alive, Allah's destruction or destroying a particular area, like Allah said in the Quran, as long as you Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa anta you fiha, as long as you are amongst them, Allah's yu'adhibuhum Allah will not destroy them as long as you are amongst them. The more we keep that sunnah alive, right, the more you won't see that destruction. Why is there such chaos in some of the biggest cities? Because the people are absent of the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this doesn't vindicate none of the smaller cities either, right? Why the smaller cities across the entire country and globe and things of that nature? Why? Because the remembrance of Allah is not there, right? So this thing is absolutely necessary. It has to be halakha, circles created, right? Circles of knowledge created. People need to get together every day. And if you don't have people with you get together with every day, you need to have a specific time allotted where you review your Quran, review your notes, and you become that halakha. That house that you get together at in order to study the Quran, it becomes a house of barakah, a house of knowledge and blessings, right? And then you'll start to see things will change. Right? Things will change. You'll start to see change in people. You'll see changing in the environment, right? And this is why once again, I mentioned about those people who are undereducated, always intoxicated, everything, traumatized, traumatic, all of those things. Many of them have become hopeless to the point that, they're constantly the thoughts of how you say it now, unliving themselves, no longer exist. This is why they contemplate suicide and things of that nature, because they think that death will there's nothing to happen after death, and them dying, that solves their problem. MashaAllah, it doesn't solve your problem like that, So anyway, going back to the Shaykh is fasl fil samawat, the section dealing with the afterlife. Now, the sami'at, the word itself means things that you heard about. Sami'at comes from the same word as the sami'at, to hear, right? So sami'at is hearing about those things in the plural sense, those events that take place. Who do you hear them from? Well, the first thing that you learn pertaining to the sami'at, wa afdaluhum Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wa jami' akhbaru bil haqq, right? So the first thing that you learn about is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the virtues of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? That he's the best of the messengers and prophets. And if you look at it with the sequence and how it segues into it, is that we just got done talking about the prophets and messengers. And what is the first line that the Shaykh mentions? The most virtuous out of all of the prophets and messengers is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he informed, and everything that he informed you about is true. So if you read it, you read it in the hadith, right? In the Quran, is haqq. Is the truth. You can't doubt it. To doubt it depends on, there's a few things, conditions with it, but it can lead you to disbelief. It's no different than you prostrating to a statue, right? Could you imagine you come all this way into Islam and they got groups that's out here calling people away from the truth and calling them away from the love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You have a group call themselves Quraniyun, Ahlul Quran, right? And they believe what? What do they believe about themselves? Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What do they believe about themselves? They believe that they only follow the Quran. It's only necessary to follow the Quran, and they don't have anything to do with hadith because hadith is from men, right? This in and of itself is totally deviant and could lead you to the level of kufr, because even in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs you to follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? So this is the thing, you have to understand this. the semi'at, your behavior, your life, your everyday life, how you deal with people, how you know, your family, your wives, your husbands, your children, all of it is connected to paradise, right? There's a hadith. I guess one day my wife was running into it. I'm an antagonist a little bit, right? I'm gonna be honest with you. I antagonize my family, right? I troll, you know, I do all that stuff, right? I'm a bad guy sometimes. It's a little fun to get a little kick out of it. But however, you know, there's a group of women assigned to every believing man. They're called, they're recognized by the name of the Hur Ain, right? And there's a hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam where it mentions about when your wife in the dunya causes some sort of harm to you, when she does you harm, right? Whether it's be annoyance or physical, you know, she push you off the chair or something, you know, she's yelling at you, pointing at you with her finger, says something to hurt your feelings, you know. Her replica, her lookalike, matter of fact, your Hur Ain, I'll give you an equivalency for you young bucks. She's a baddie. She's a baddie, right? Your Hur Ain, she's a baddie, you see? So, you know, you like the women with them long vixen hair, and, you know, she's bad. Listen, right? Imam Qurtubi, he has a book called Al-Tadhkirah, right? And hold on one second. I think, hold on. So anyway, Imam Qurtubi, he says, it's mentioned in the Tadhkirah, that your Hur Ain, they have your name, basically, this is how we understand it, your name tatted on their chest. Right? So, you know, all of these things, this is motivation, because there's a limit. The Prophet ﷺ says a dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir, right? That the dunya is a prison to the believer, and it's paradise to those who disbelieve. Why? Because the paradise is the person does what they want. You take your feet out, you stick your feet out. You know, I think in the Caribbean, I believe Jamaica particularly, they have a time of the year where they practice what they call hedonism, right? Hedonism, they run around, they sleep with random people, they run around on the beaches butt naked and stuff like that, you know, doing all these demonic things, you know. That's paradise to them, you know. They go down there. That's why people always, you know, taking trips to Miami and Florida, you know, go stick their feet in the sand. If you know, you live up north and you kind of broke, you go to Atlantic City and go hop over dirty dope needles. you try to enjoy life as little bit as you can. But anyway, I digress. But you know, to them, this is paradise. There go my daughter. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, you know, you try to create this your own version of paradise. Women want to be beautiful, you know, and fall under that banner of baddie, but the true baddie is the Hur Ain. You don't have to do no cosmetic plastic surgery or any of those particular things. In order for that, the only thing you got to do is obey Allah Azza wa Jalla, right? So anyway, so every time, you know, I used to always say this, and if anybody know me, you've been following me for a while, I even used to say it in the khutbahs. You know, I antagonize my wives, you know, with this. I'll be like, it's okay, because my other wife, my more beautiful version of you, she's well constructed, she's well put together, she's a baddie. She's making dua against you right now, you know, and that's what the hadith says. You know, the woman, she treats you bad, you know, she you know, she's angry. Your Hur Ain is angry with her, you know. So this is something, is our belief system and what motivates us, right? The same way that you're motivated as a black man to take care of his family. When you take care of your family, that's a great feeling. You're like, yeah, man, I'm a man, I provide for my family, you know. That's how you feel. Well, when you take care of your obligations to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you feel even greater, right? and you're being rewarded for it. So anyway, so everything that the Prophet ﷺ came with is haq. So now that is established, everything that is mentioned here is supported by the book and the Sunnah, and you can find it in there, right? So the first thing that we'll mention, he says, وَجَمِعَةُ مَا أَخْبَرَ بِهِ الْحَقِّ مِنَ الْمَوْتِ وَعَجْلِ, right? وَعَذِبِ الْقَبْرِ وَنِعْمِهِ, right? So he says, so from the Prophet ﷺ, meaning haq, from, that's including death at its appointed time, right? You'll die. You're responsible. Death at its appointed time. The punishment of the grave, right? And there's a lot that goes on in the grave in detail, and you'll learn that from the ayahs in the Quran and hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. One of the events is that you'll be questioned about what did you believe in this dunya. But the way that you answer these questions is not from you studying for a test, but rather yet it's more so, how did you conduct yourself? You know, what did you do? You know, how did you behave? And so by your behavior, meaning the actions that you've done in this dunya, Allah makes it easy for you in the grave to answer these questions. And when you don't answer these questions properly, or you hesitate on them because of your lack of deeds and practicing your Islam in this dunya, then there's two angels. They said these angels are hideous and ugly, right? Now, every time I think of this, you know, this is just my imagination, man. We talking about how many lives. This ain't, you know, not attributing anything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so it's a bit innocent. Anybody know who Bill Duke is? Bill Duke is one ugly dude. If you ever seen Predator, the old Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bill Duke is that dark-skinned ugly dude. That's an ugly dude in my opinion, right? So I think some ugly dudes like them, you know, coming with a real nasty, scary voice. Men Rabuka, who's your Lord? Right? And he's just ugly, you know, and he asking you, who's your Lord? You know, and so it says that the disbeliever and the sinful Muslim, they share the same traits. They'll hesitate, they'll and can't get the words out, can't answer the question right away. And why is that? For the believer, it's because of his lack of practice, right? Until the mercy of Allah Ta'ala, you know, reaches him, and then he's able to, and this is going on right now, real time in the grave, right? The Prophet ﷺ said it, khalas, that's it. That's what it is, right? Now, so the disbeliever, they'll either be reluctant or they'll come right out. My Lord is Jesus, right? And then there's mallet, these two ugly angels, you know, ugly. And there's people that's uglier than Bill Duke. But Bill Duke to me is hideous. But anyway, these two ugly, these jokers is ugly, right? And they're going to hit you with this hammer, and you'll bust into pieces and reconfigure, come back again, and they'll do it again. This is going on right now in the grave, right? How do we know? The Prophet ﷺ told us about it. So this is why the Shaykh, he opened up with this. And also, if it makes you feel any better, you know, because you have some people like, yo, I ain't gonna learn any of this stuff unless it's coming from a West African scholar as well, right? So he says, he goes on, the Shaykh, he goes on, he says, Wasu'aluhu. I'm sorry. And that was the last part. You know what? I need to make a correction to that. All right. Wasu'alihi, right? And it's questioning. You'll be questioning in the grave. And that's what I started talking about, being questioned in the grave. If you don't answer those questions right, you'll be tormented, right? And this will continue to go on until the day of judgment, right? Y'all turn that heat off or something? Or you blocking it? Just turn it off. It smells like it's cooking you.
Okay, cooking my shit.
Yeah, you about to be getting them questions in the grave. Now, so anyway, so he goes on. He says, "Ihyai wa mauti," right? وحشرهم في سعيد واحد نعم واحد فجر كل عمله وأخذ الصحف وحساب والصراط والميزان. Now, so then the Shaykh, he mentions next that the questioning in the grave, which we already mentioned, the resurrecting, the revival, or bringing back to life of the dead, right? This is one of the things that the disbelievers, they don't believe in. And Muslims have to be careful because Muslims are kind of like taking this, I don't know what they call it, humanist approach, or, I don't know, whatever they're calling it, spiritual approach. And they're trying to dibble and dabble into everything. And everybody doesn't believe in the afterlife, And this is also one of the things about the whole concept of karma, karma. You're generally trying to summarize it and use it as one word to say what goes around comes around. But what they also believe that's attached with it is that their life when they come back. What is that joint called again? Their incarnated life. They'll come back as something evil as well because of the evil that they did. Right. So you have to be careful of those things. Right. We believe, Ahl Sunnah, the Muslims, what we believe is that you will be resurrected. It doesn't matter if a person burns their body, cremates their body, which is becoming something practice, more of a regular practice now, which is against Islam, but it's a regular practice. And why you find people practicing it so much, they try to make it sound fancy. I want to burn my body down to ashes and throw it all over the water. No, the real reason is that, when you get down to it, the bottom line is, I ain't trying to put y'all through that hardship. Just burn my body. We don't need no big funeral. That's really what it boils down to, right? Because funerals cost money. Although they cry with you, they thank you, ma'am, open the door, put you in a limo and all that stuff. By the time you done, all you hear is ching, 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 right? Because it adds up. I have a old coworker of mine. I just seen her a couple of days ago. She left the EMS field. She said she making well over 6 digits just selling burial plots and, tombstones and stuff like that. So it's a moneymaker as well. And so a lot of people, they cremate themselves. Some people psych themselves out and they give reason. I don't need everybody there. If you were lonely in this life, you definitely going to be lonely at the time when you get ready to die. So you want to spare yourself more loneliness and heartache. Just burn my body and throw me away, right? No, people that were honored and loved, and this is how we honor our dead as Muslims. We wash their body, right? We don't just like stuff them with embalming fluid, with chemicals and things like that. We shroud them up. We cover their face. We don't allow their face to be exposed, putting fake makeup on and things of that nature, because we're not even trying to give you an illusion that it might be, like it's a Mardi Gras or something like that. We ain't in New Orleans doing the second line. That's what they do. They carry the body down the street, marching and dancing and stuff. You got to you become aware of some of the cultural practices that you'll find in America. You'll find it kind of interesting, and you'll find those practices and how they're different from Islam. Because when you're aware, when you're informed, you're better informed. You have a better chances of avoiding doing those particular practices. Like next Friday, about to be Valentine's Day, all of the Muslims going to be out with their wife, secretly. Some people going to cut their cameras off. Some people are bold, and you're like, yeah, I'm doing it, but guess what? All of these things that we're talking about is still applicable. You die, you still going to be questioned by the angels. You die, you still going to be resurrected, re-put together, reconstructed, and be, asked about these particular things and these actions. So anyway, so the next thing now, so the next thing, every person will be, they'll be resurrected from the dead. They'll be gathered in one place, the hashr, right? Where every person will see their own deeds, right? And some of the things, when you read about the description that the Prophet ﷺ talked about, you're not just standing in one area chilling. They said that people begin to think about all of the things that they've done in this dunya, where people will start sweating. It's natural to start sweating first. Usually that's the first sign, of a person's nervousness, right? It's sweaty palms. right? You about to get in trouble, person's sweaty, right? Nervousness, right? Or they in love with somebody, they honor somebody so much, they're nervous, you know. If you got that, you know, you got that swag with you, you know, you saucy like that, you know, your wife should have butterflies in the stomach. Stomach start, what's wrong, babe? Oh, it's just when I get around you, you know. Now, you know, these are first signs. You start getting fidgety, palms start sweating, you know. So imagine on the Qiyamah, when you know that Allah Ta'ala is gonna judge everything that you've done, you're gonna start thinking about it. Man, I lied about that. SubhanAllah. I lied about this. I lied about that. I did this, right? I did that. I didn't mean to do that. SubhanAllah. Or, you know, and then you'll be like what Allah Ta'ala talked about those people who are liars. He said, oh Allah, you know, just send us back. I promise you, if you send us back, I promise I'll go do the right thing and come back. And then you'll see and you'll let me go to paradise. But Allah said about their true nature, he said they're liars. Because if you really believe you'd have done it the first time. That's why the afterlife is such a great reward for the person who avoided doing sins and obeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Why is it such a great reward? Because you believe without physically seeing it. You believed, and it motivated you to avoid and doing everything what everybody else was doing. Every prophet and messenger did not have the people on their side. The people hated them. They didn't hate them because they stole money, they stole their women, they stole their food, cars. As a matter of fact, the people actually did that to them. Why did they hate them? Because the only thing they did was call the people to la ilaha illallah. Listen, man, only thing you got to do is just worship Allah. You'll experience it. You'll experience it now with your own family. Try to raise a family up on the deen. They'll begin to have resentment towards you. You know, they're you're like, oh man, here we go. You always want to do clown. Oh man, every time you turn around, you always telling about salat, man. You're just judging us and so on and so forth. Your own family will turn on you, right? But you have to stay the course. This is why you're rewarded. This is why Allah pardons you at the hasha, at that gathering. This is why these things happen. Then you'll receive the suhuf, because you have two angels with you. Everybody has the two angels with them from the time that you become mukallaf, where you become legally responsible for your own sins. There's two angels assigned to you. Every word you say is being recorded. It's either being put in the side of the good or it's being put in the side of the bad. Every action that you do is being recorded. It's either being put in the good or being put in the bad. When you forget, when your iman gets weak, that's when you start lying, stealing, fornicating, drinking, getting high, all of that stuff. Iman gets weak. Once it gets weak and you start doing those things, and you do it continuously, it gets even weaker, and it gets even weaker, and it gets even weaker until you die up on that state. Tawbah is a blessing, is a ni'mah from Allah, but Tawbah just ain't one of those, astaghfirullah, Allah forgive me. You know when you do that, you know what that joint remind me of? Hail Mary, full of grace. I ain't gonna do it no more. No, you have to do Tawbah. Tawbah is about self-control as well as acknowledging what you did was wrong. If you don't acknowledge what you did is wrong, then what is the Tawbah? What good is the Tawbah, right? You have to stop the sin. You have to feel remorse. You don't say, astaghfirullah, may Allah forgive me, but you still laying next to the woman or you laying next to the man, right? That's not how that works. Now, so anyway, the Shaykh, he went on, he mentioned about the Hisab, where you'll be accounted for the things that you've done. The next one is the Sirat. The Sirat is this path, it's over top of the fire, right? It's over top of the fire. It's thin like a piece of hair, sharper than a razor. And people will fly over that thing or move slow, and people will fall right into the hellfire based on the deeds that they've done in this life. This is why you do sunnah fasting. This is why you do sunnah prayers. This is why you do tajdid. Tajdid just ain't for when you having problems, right? Tahdid ain't for just when you having problems. Tahdid is for you to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to gain more hasanat, to turn to Allah in gratitude. Because how do you be grateful to Allah ta'ala is by you increasing in your ibadah. And how does this affect you? It affects you overall. Stop being Abdul Ramadan. Right now, Ramadan's coming up. Everybody's going to be Abdul Ramadan. Yo, I got my kufi on. I'm fasting for 3 days, and I'll fast the last 3 days. The other 24 days, I'm going to raise hell, but I'm just going to do it after Maghrib. Right? We have to stop that. Because what happens if you die in the midst of those other 24 days while you're raising havoc? Right? Now, so anyway, so the sirat. And then the wazn, the scales. Wasn't a wazn, it wasn't an a'mal, the scale of actions. The more you do, the heavier your scale is. There's no reason why any person should be withholding sadaqah. Give it. It doesn't hurt you. You know how, one of the easiest ways that you can gain good deeds? Is by just smiling at a person, shaking a person's hand, having a good word to say, telling them the truth, not always busting on them, bidding on them all the time, right? Those things, those small things, right? Those things get you hasanat. It makes your wasn't an a'mal. It makes your scale heavy. If your scale is light on the right, that means it's heavy on the left. And if it's heavy on the left, then you're going to the fire. Clear cut indication that you're doomed. Right? So you want to do as much as good as possible. What is another good way of doing good other than just actually doing the physical actions? Teaching, learning, teaching, learning, teaching, learning, reading the Quran. All of these things work in your favor. Right? One of the beauty, anyone who reads this hadith, right? It talks about the 6 people that shaded on the Qiyamah, on that day when there's no shade. It's talking about this time with the Yom al-Hisab, with the reckoning, where everybody will hashr, will be in the same area. It's going to be hot. People going to be sweating. People going to be crying. Oh, one of the descriptions I forgot is mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. They'll be crying until blood comes out their eyes. Right? They ain't going to have no more tears. They're going to be dehydrated. Now they're going to start crying blood. Right? My mind can't even fathom that I'm that dehydrated. I ain't even got a tear. Right? But then again, it is because think about it. When you're dehydrated, you can't even urinate. When your urine is that dark and concentrated where it look like mustard, you on your last legs. This is a moment before your kidneys and everything else start shutting down and failing. Right? So these things happening, you see the signs in this life of the possibility. Well, imagine in the akhirah in real time. Right? So, all of these things will be happening. There wasn't an a'mal. And in the last couple things that I mentioned, that the Shaykh mentioned, he says, wa jannati wa nari, right? Wa hawdihi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa ru'ya Allahu bi ghayri dhalik, fahadihi aqidat al-ahli sunnah wa jama'ah. Right? Then he says about the Jannah, paradise, right? In its 8 levels, some hadith says that it's 7, right? Paradise. Things about paradise. I mentioned one of them earlier. You having your huru ayn, your beautiful wives, right? Righteous women to have handsome husbands. You ain't gonna have no eyes for another man, right? You know how every 5 minutes now that you're on Facebook and on television, they always trying to sell you some hymns and row and Blue Chew, Iron Man, some kind of stamina performance. Well, in Jannah, according to the hadiths, right? According to the hadiths, normally, with you 5 minute, 10 minute macho man, you might get a half hour. Well, in Jannah, according to the hadith, you're gonna be 40 years. 40 years. 40 years, right? So you think about this. All of these are rewards in paradise, because paradise is about enjoyment, because you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You persevere through that time, right? This is why it's so rewarding, right? Even the lowest level of paradise that's mentioned in the hadith, right? Where the man think he's being mocked at because he was one of the last people that was brought out of the hellfire. He said he was burnt crispy black, and Allah lightened him and admitted him into Jannah. And he looking around, he like, what is this? This is for me? No. Are you playing with me? Ya Allah, seriously? Right? This person, right? So these things are real time. This is why the Prophet ﷺ tell you to motivate you, right? Now you don't learn these things just so you can sit around and argue with one another, but it's to motivate you, motivate each other. Akhi, we need to fear Allah. Remember paradise, man. We gotta get to paradise. Those are motivating. You should be for the believer anyway, right? Most Muslims now don't want to hear about Jannah. I'm dealing with mental issues right now. I don't want to hear that, right? You know, you remind them of paradise. You remind them of hellfire. I got a lot going on. You know, mental health is real. Depression is real, right? The whole point of the mentioning Jannah is to motivate you. You know, if you ever been part of a race, a relay race, or, you know, and you thinking about all I got to do is just pass here and I can win and get the gold medal or the silver medal or the bronze medal and so on and so forth. Well, that's what paradise, the thoughts of paradise and knowing the descriptions of paradise, that's what it means to you. Yo, let me chill out, man, before I lose paradise, because I don't want to lose that, right? Well, Naran, the fire, right? Now, the fire is to do what? To do the opposite, to deter you from going there, to encourage you to do good so you gain Jannah, but also to deter you from doing bad so you don't go in the fire. Because that fire, it ain't no death. You don't die once you get burnt in hellfire, right? In dunya, you'll die. Somebody set the house on fire right now. We couldn't get out the house. We'll burn down the ashes, right? You'll come in, you'll find our skeleton all burnt up. You know, they'll go to pick you up. The rest of your bone will fall off, you know, and they'll just put your remains and wrap it up in, you know, in something, and probably do a little testing, find a little autopsy to see what was going on, why you died in the fire, and so on and so forth, right? Then they'll take you back and give you to the Muslims for them to wash your, well, you ain't washing the bones. You're washing your remains, washing your remains, wrap it up, shroud you, and put you in the ground, pay the takbirs over you and khalas, right? Well, however, this is our reality, right? Those different levels, the levels of hellfire, the levels of paradise are rewards for what you used to do in the Jannah, right? There's one that I've been motivated, right? And I'll tell you this is a little personal story about myself. When I became Muslim, from the time I became Muslim, now I had 1 year, it was getting close to around this time of the year when I became Muslim. But anyway, the Muslims had just finished Ramadan, right? I took Shahada in prison. The Muslim had just finished Ramadan. I wasn't Muslim yet. And I remember that because me, I'm an observant person. I always pay attention. And they just finished Ramadan. So they was all happy. You know, everything was peaceful. And one brother particularly, I used to talk to him all the time. He's part of the reason why I took Shahada, you know. Good friend of mine. We still friends to this day. And I remember when, after I got released from jail, I didn't have much knowledge of Islam, but, you know, my little brother took Shahada with me. Me and him was laughing about this when we was in Jersey last weekend. I said, yo, you remember that time we fasted so-called Ramadan 2 times incorrectly and only one was right? And when we first took Shahada, he was like, yo, I remember that. I said, you remember we used to drink Kool-Aid and talk about it's actually water, so you ignore the color in it. And he was like, yeah, I remember that, because we was going by the belief that Ramadan was in December. Now, the crazy part was Ramadan was in December at one point, but where we was getting that from was because of the nation. People, it was brothers that were, it was different than today. You had brothers that was like part of the nation, the Moral Science Temple, all that. So you had all kinds of crazy beliefs just floating around you, you know? And so brothers tell you, yeah, man, Ramadan's in December. So we didn't say, man, this is confusing, I'm just going to quit. So we fasted the whole December, but we didn't know what fasting was in this reality. We were told you could drink water. And that's how we was playing with the whole Kool-Aid joint. So we'll sit all day without drinking food. Because whenever a person thinks about fasting, it's almost like they about to die. And you ever tell you, not even water, you can't eat nothing, right? It's like they're going to die without food. You know, you start thinking of all their medical conditions and everything. Every Muslim is sick. Everybody diabetic, got hypertension. I got gout. I got this. I got that. You know, and their diet doesn't reflect that they have these problems. But when it's time for Ramadan, all these problems come front and center. So we fasted that 30 days for December, right? And I seen my homeboy, and I told him, I'm like, yeah, man, I just got done fasting. He was like, yeah. And I said, yeah, you know, the Ramadan, December. He looked at me. He was like, "Nah, I don't think that's right." But see, the only problem was he wasn't really practicing, so he wasn't really trying to say too much. He wasn't trying to put me on the game like that, right? So you're like, I don't know about that, man. You might want to check into that. He said, I know them other people fast in December. So I'm like, all right, whatever. January came around. Brother told us, yeah, man, Ramadan started in January. So he like, started in January? All right. So my brother, he said, yo, we got to do another 30. We got to do another 30. All right. He was like, all right, man. He was like, yo, that joint was kind of rough, but alhamdulillah, we had water, right? So, and we was breaking fast when it was pitch black outside. We didn't even break fast at the right time, right? So, gonna find out we was wrong about that. So I run into my homie, man. I talk to him every once in a while. He's still back in New York. I talk to him every once in a while, and we always laugh. I'll be like, yo, I remember when I seen you down at the fountain, and I thought it was Ramadan, and he was like, yo, he said, I ain't gonna lie to you. He said, I used to love it. He said, because I was grinding you up, because you used to see me and grind me up. And I said, I know. And so I'm like, yo, I said, yo, how'd your Ramadan go? Ramadan just started. It's tomorrow, Shaykh, based on the moon sighting, And I'm like, moon sighting? What you talking about? They're like, yeah, tomorrow, man. You ain't been at the master to get you a calendar? So now I'm like, oh, snap. I'm like, no. He's like, yo, you need to learn your thing. You always grinding me up on one thing. You got to learn your thing. And I was like, all right, let me ask you one more question. He said, what? I said, I know we can't eat. I know we ain't supposed to be having sex and stuff. But you can drink water, right? What? Where you learn this from? So now I go home to my younger brother. I'm like, yo, we ain't supposed to eat. We ain't supposed to drink. We ain't supposed to do none of that. So we did it again. Got another 30. So then he seen me. He brought me a calendar. Because at this time, I wasn't going to man shit. I was supposed to. He brought me a calendar. I'm looking at the calendar like, yo, Ramadan ended this time. That was the very first time I ever fasted in my life and properly. All we knew was everything was haram. Don't eat nothing, don't smell nothing, don't drink nothing, don't touch nothing, none of that. So that's how we came about Ramadan. Of course, as time went on, I started learning the rules and regulations of fasting. But anyway, so after that happened, I learned that it was Sunnah to fast every Monday and Thursday. So I always fasted every Monday and Thursday. It was kind of easy to me because I kind of grew up eating one meal. Not by choice. It was kind of like so poor that you just eat dinner, you know what I'm saying, and buy chips and stuff like that in between. But anyway, so I took a desire to it, liking to it. Then some years went by, I found out I had diabetes, right? Now I'm having a hard time fasting because I'm utilizing the medication, stuff like that, making blood sugar drop. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So now I'm crying because every Ramadan come around, I couldn't fast. But I was like, yo, I'm going to get this. I'm going to learn how to do it. Yo, I literally would take a night job that I didn't have to work during the day just so I could sit at home and fast just in case my blood sugar dropped while fasting. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes I was able to do 15 days straight. Other times I would have to make up days outside of Ramadan and so on and so forth. So, so that was always like motivation, And so, and part of the bigger thing was what would make me weep. It wasn't just about Ramadan because I used to, like I said, it used to be a group of us. We used to always get together, eat, and break fast together and stuff, right? However, there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where there's a specific door in Jannah for the people who fast consistently. And that consistent fasting is whether you do 3 days a month, every other day, Mondays and Thursdays. But it has to be done consistently in accordance to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So learning this hadith, I'm like, man, this is probably the easiest thing that I can do consistently that'll give me the Jannah. And that's always been, my motivation to pick back up and fasting. There's a door in Jannah for women. If they take care of their 5 pillars and they're obedient to their husband, they stay away from the haram, endure the problems that you have, she gets to walk through whatever door in Jannah that she wants. There's specific rewards for people. There's rewards for people who recite Quran, right? Quran reciter. And that's why it's always important to push your children to memorize and learn the Quran. Why? Because that child that memorizes the Quran, they're given the ability to intercede for their parents. And this something that I realized that he didn't talk about in here. He left it out. But Shaykh Uthman, he talks about that. He talks about the intercession where the Prophet ﷺ will intercede for the believers, the sinful people. Now, so which brings me to my next part. So we talked about Jannah, we talked about Narun, right? Now the Hawd, this is something exclusively for the Prophet ﷺ, right? And this is only for the people who were diehard, who followed his Sunnah, right? Look up the tafsir. I'll give you a reference. Look up the tafsir, the explanation of Surah Kawthar. Somebody put in the chat what number that surah is, because I forgot. I think it's 106. Somebody put in the chat the number of that surah. I forgot. But the Hawd is for the people of the Sunnah. It's a hadith in the Muwatta's in Bukhari. I think it's in Muslim as well. It talks about how the believers, they'll meet at the Hawd, at this pool, where you'll be looking for the Prophet ﷺ, right? You ever been anticipating to see someone, right? Like, you come back from Hajj and your family's standing there waiting for you to come through the gates at the airport and they're looking for you, right? Well, that's how the Prophet ﷺ is going to be looking for you at the Hawd, right? And you're going to meet at the Hawd. And then there'll be angels there as well. And those angels will block you if you're a person of innovation, if you follow innovation or done things. And how you'll know the people of the Hawd, they said they have a sign, because where they used to purify for wudu and things of that nature, it'll have a light, it'll glow, right? But if you're a people who were people of innovation, it's not that you're disbelievers and you're not sinful because you made it to paradise, right? The Hawd is in paradise. So you're not a disbeliever. You're not none of that. You made it to paradise. And this also show you that eventually, people of innovation at some point will get purified and get forgiven, right? As they're approaching, and the Prophet says something like, yo, come on, right? And as they're approaching, the Prophet says something's ready to embrace them. The angels, they like TSA, at the airport. Nah. Step over here, sir. We need you to step over here. And the Prophet says something's like, yo, wait, whoa. These are my people. This is from my ummah, my people, right? And you're going to say, you don't know what they mean, what the innovations the things that they done after you, Ya Rasulullah. And the Prophet says something becomes disappointing, like, yo, get him out of here. Get him out of here. You know how hurtful that is? Someone who's anticipating to see you, you anticipating to see them, right? And then you get there and they don't want to see you, right? SubhanAllah. So this is the event that takes place with the Hawd, And then the last thing that is mentioned, you will understand this as long as you understand the proper Aqidah, right? The proper Aqidah. Out of everything that's mentioned, barakallahu feekum, everybody. The thing that is important to remember out of all of this, when you're talking about the ilahiyat, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not like his creation. Laysa kamithlihi shay'un, right? He doesn't have a jihad, a direction, a jism, no body, no location, right? When you understand this, when you understand this, ikhwan, then you will be able to embrace the ru'ya without allowing your mind to ponder and, just wander and say this and that about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not going to place Allah ta'ala in a direction. You're not going to make him sit on the throne. None of that. Your mind will remain pure. You'll say whatever Allah intended by it, that's what I'm going to accept it as, right? It's the ru'ya, okay? And the ru'ya is a reward, and that is when the believer, the word ru'ya is given the meaning and understanding of seeing, right? Well, a person will be able to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala What is intended by that? We don't care. But what we say is we believe in it, in all of it, and affirm it. And that's what it is. That ru'ya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said, in other than وَغَيْرُ ذَلِكَ, and then the Shaykh, he closes this section. He says, فَهَذِهِ عَقِيدَةُ أَهْلِ السُنَّةِ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ. Right? He says, he closes, he said, and this is the belief of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the people of the Sunnah, in the Jama'ah. Now, I'm going to throw a bonus class next week because we ended this section on Aqidah. Bonus class, right? And then the week after, I'm going to do a class pertaining to fasting. Okay? So the bonus class that I'm going to give is really pertaining to the first pillar of Islam, right? Of the 5 pillars. What's the first pillar of the 5? Shahada, right? We're going to talk about that because what happens is sometimes people will attribute disbelief to the believers, and we sometimes attribute wrongly belief to somebody that's not a believer, right? So we want to be on the correct path. And what are those things that give you the signs of a believer, and what takes a person in and out of Islam? We want to touch on that. We'll cover that. And so before we go into the salat, because I'm going to continue the class, the 5th class, right? And just for the sisters that's in the class now, that's on this, in the chat. We got our own separate group. I got a class just for the sisters that I do the class, and I don't do it on YouTube. I'm going to have 2. It's really going to be 2 classes. I'm going to have this series that's on YouTube where I'm doing Taqreeb from Shaykh Abdullahi and Fodiyo. And I'm going to have the class with just the sisters exclusively, because there's things with sisters, you'll be going over the same issues of the Farad Ain, but pertaining to them. And they may have questions that's exclusively, pertaining to them. So I'm going to, we're going to separate that class. So it'll be doing the same class twice. So if you missed the class, refer back to the YouTube. All right. If you missed it, refer back to the YouTube. I'll post it. But for the sisters, that class, our classes are still going to be going on. It's going to be separate, inshallah. And we also still going to be doing the lessons from the Quran. We're not going to stop that. So, Ramadan is still going to be the same schedule. Time might change. Time might change for me. Also, we still, I'm still working out the kinks and things of that nature. Oh, also with the fasting, the class on fasting, I wrote a book some years ago. I never really printed up in a book form. But what I'll do is that Friday before we do the class, I will make it available, to the public. Right? We'll try to put it, make it available at Friday at midnight, when it turns 12:01 for people to download, right? And we'll do, the class. It's going to be on a Saturday, inshallah. So we'll do the class, we'll go over that particular text, inshallah. And I tried to write it as simple as possible. A lot of people gain benefit from it. A few of the brothers, in the community and people outside the community taught the book, and may Allah Ta'ala reward them. Some of the teachings I was able to, view on a video. I believe they did an excellent job, but this is how you keep the legacy, of Islam going, But next week, like I said, we'll do it on the deal with the whole subject pertaining to the Shahada. And let me see here. I can never find my I'm about to say I can never find my glasses. All right, let me look at my chat. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Okay, Surah 102, 108, 108, 108. Nah, Barakallahu fikum. Nah. At times, great striving, effort, man. I mean, Bill Duke. Bill Duke is ugly. No. Alhamdulillah, barakallahu fikum. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, also we're gonna produce this. I'm gonna publish this book. as well, inshallah. Taqreeb Durori. It'll be out. You just check our website, tajdidsunnah.org. But our class is pretty much done. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all, and bless everyone, inshallah. And like I said, your comments, questions, whatever, you can find me on social media. Just type in Khalil Abdullahi. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I'm a little slow at answering Instagram. You can find me on Telegram. I got a Telegram group. I got a like page, following page that I post in. I don't post as consistently as I do other groups. Got Tajdid Sunnah group on Facebook, Tajdid Sunnah group on Telegram, Signal, you name it, I'm there, inshallah. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward everyone, inshallah. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik wa shadu an la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.